Welcome back. As you know by now, my name is David Chotka. I'm the author of this book called Mark My Words, and this is study session number 8. So let me ask you this question. Are the words of Jesus and the accounts of his power and all the things that you have been learning in your small group with all kinds of people starting to mark your words? They certainly have left an indelible impression on me. Now, anyone who has walked with God for any time will sooner or later wonder whether they have crossed the line that we studied this week. People who are wonderful Christians have from time to time wondered or considered whether or not they've committed the unpardonable sin. So the teaching in this section is very pastoral. It's important. To commit that unpardonable sin, you would have had to have seen a lot of miraculous acts of power. You would have had to have taken part in a national or international revival with thousands or tens of thousands of new believers standing right beside you in awe and wonder as they were made well. You would have had to have witnessed miraculous healings and exorcisms, these very things that would have left the helpless and the hopelessly insane completely restored to health and to their right mind. And after you witnessed all of that, you would have had to have called all of that evil, satanic, unclean, filthy. You would have had to have been involved in a plot to undermine the preacher or preachers who were teaching this, and you would have called all those preachers packs of manipulative liars who were deceived and deceiving, or worse, making deliberate evil attempts to destroy. Now, I have had friends lose all hope that they could be saved at all because they said something quickly about the Holy Spirit and later came to regret that. Now, let me be clear as clear can be. This sin is not about tripping over your lip or saying something thoughtless or even thoughtfully considered after a bad day pushed you to despair or bitter rage so that you actually wanted to swear. This sin, this thing called the unpardonable sin, involves the sinner planning to deliberately undermine the consistently viewed, experienced goodness of God after knowing and seeing that goodness in action for years. Most who are taking part in this study probably would not be in a position to commit such an egregious act of subterfuge or slander. Let me tell you a story that makes the point. I have personally witnessed as many as 50 miraculous healings over 3 days. In fact, I have been to 3 international revivals. I'm going to go back to the one where I'm going to describe this to you. I watched 50 miraculous healings over 3 days during crusade evangelism in northern Uganda. In my own congregation in Spruce Grove, Alberta, there were more than 15 medically verified miracles of healing in a 2-day event in February of 2009. In that one event, my own wife was miraculously healed of facioscapular humeral muscular dystrophy. They call it FSH. My admin assistant was instantly healed of the effects of a bone injury from a motorcycle accident more than 17 years before. My board chair was healed of prostate cancer, and in my living room after the Sunday sermon, there were 4 people sitting together among 7 of us who had all been healed in exactly the same event with the guy who had done it sitting in the living room. Years later, I met many more people who were healed who had not told me the effect of those 2 days until a conversation years after the event took place. Now, here was the effect of those 2 days in February of 2009. Each person's walk with God grew sweeter as a direct result. And their faith in Jesus' power to heal grew stronger as a direct result. Now, with all of that in mind, if I had said that the whole thing arose because of the devil's influence, and then I used all my power to undermine everything that happened, and that all of this was done as a wicked distortion of God's goodness, and that it was satanic in origin, and that the preacher behind that was filled with the filth of the devil's influences, then and only then would I have been guilty of that sin. Now, I didn't do that, as you're probably well aware. Rather, I am still in awe of what took place in that special time, especially as I have the opportunity to speak with those who were touched by the grace and the power of God. Now, I'm using a story to make a point. You will remember the story long after the teaching fades away. Telling stories that speak to emotions, positive or negative, have an astonishing effect. It gets stamped into people's memory. That's why Jesus told stories. That's why Mark's gospel is filled with stories. Almost everyone knows what is meant when we talk about being a good Samaritan. That comes from a story of Jesus. Many who know nothing about the Bible will understand completely. When someone talks about a prodigal returning home, well, that's a story from Jesus. Jesus used stories, including a story about a strong guy in a man cave. Our culture understands that. All of us know guys who have man caves. So he used that story about a strong man in a man cave to teach about unclean spirits and the Holy Spirit. Can you tell a story for your small group? Make sure you tell it well. If it impacts their emotions, they will repeat that story back to you years later. When you open up your study guide this week, make sure that your study time includes an account or two, and know that you probably have not committed the unpardonable sin. Mark my words. These are my words. What are yours?